We are almost live. Okay, welcome everybody. This is Practical Creativity, a program where we demystify the creative process so you can make it your own on purpose. Today, we're going to continue exploring business and strategic plans. So why don't we review what we have already covered? And that is, what is a business plan or strategic plan? And I really see this as a way to structure yourself so you can be successful on purpose. It's great to be successful, but it's nice to be able to replicate it. So this is very important, especially for folks who are maybe more creative, who are not necessarily looking at how can we be successful on purpose. So this just gives you a framework to do that. Okay, so this is also a tool for self-awareness. Most of us are so focused on the doing and so focused on what we're actually creating day to day that we're not necessarily thinking about how we're doing the business of that business. So a business plan or a strategic plan really helps us be more intentional and to be more self-aware. This is also a way that we can solve our weaknesses. So again, when you're doing business, you're focused on the business, you're not necessarily seeing the bigger implications of where you might want to put some focus. So this helps us have a framework for seeing and solving those specific weaknesses. This also covers absolutely every area of the business that is required for success. So you may or may not be thinking about, where am I weak, where am I strong? Certain things, if you're looking at revenue as your only metric, then you're falling short in terms of what you could be looking at, and you likely have some blind spots. So a business plan or strategic plan is a way to actually see and resolve those things. So why do we do a business plan or strategic plan? The whole point is to start by looking at, what does success look like? If you never know what success looks like, or if success only looks like your revenue, especially if you're a not-for-profit organization, you are selling yourself short and you are not seeing the full capacity of potential that you possibly have. So this helps you know what success looks like, and it also helps other people who want to know or who are encountering your business or your organization know what it looks like. It's a way to have a way to talk about what you do that can be understood universally by people. So it's kind of like a marketing tool for yourself as well. So this is also a way to stay focused, which is really good because there's so much going on nowadays. If we're not looking at success on purpose, we don't have a framework for actually solving the things that are in the way of our continued success or ultimate success. Again, we're just kind of looking at part of the picture. Yesterday, we also talked about how what gets measured gets managed. So when you put a time and a date and a person responsible, it's amazing how many things happen that might not otherwise. So this allows you to achieve more. It helps you stay focused. And it gets you out of the doing and the micro. So many of us are creators and we're focused on the doing, on the creating. If we're thinking about next week's payroll, that's great, but that is taking us away from looking at longer range strategy, longer range potential, and then working kind of the goals. Like if you want to grow by 15% and you're only focused on doing, and you're not thinking about like, who's going to be interested in that and how can I actually put numbers behind that, you're not going to reach your goal. So this allows you to kind of like step back and zoom out from the daily operations and get into the macro level, the higher level stuff of what it actually takes to be successful. So it is so much easier to focus on doing and the content and the fun stuff, which is probably why we started the thing that we're doing. But long range success, you have to have a framework. So again, that's why you do a business plan. You have to also know what you're good at and what you're not good at. A lot of us are good at a couple of things. We're not good at necessarily all of the business areas, at least maybe not all at the same rate or at all the same level. So this gives us a framework for being able to see what we don't do well and then actually solve it. So where do you start? For me, you have to look at the why, because if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, the what is just doing. It has to serve some sort of higher purpose. If you're a not-for-profit organization, you have a mission statement. This is your purpose. This is also your definition of success. since if you're not for profit and that's all the thing that defines what success is, you're falling short, right? So that's why we have a mission. It helps us and the people around us understand what success looks like. Also, looking at the why in relation to a business plan or strategic plan is that it helps you make choices about what you don't do. So many of us are very creative and we like challenges and we say yes. So one of the things that a business plan or the why, your framework, your mission helps you actually say, we do not do this thing because it doesn't fit our definition of success. It actually helps you be disciplined and then therefore focused. So you're not wasting time, you're not wasting resources, and you're not wasting human capital. So this is also a management tool. So when you have your mission or you have your purpose, you have a way of, yes, making decisions, but also staying focused. There may be great ideas that come up. A lot of great ideas come up from our boards and from our friends and from our staff. And if you don't have a guiding why that is driving your strategic plan or a guiding why that is driving your business, you're going to get off center. So we talked yesterday about how a dozen little baby steps in one direction that are maybe not quite aligned can get you over the course of a couple of weeks very far from where you had intended to be. So this allows us to say no, to stay on track, and all because we're not hurting feelings, but because we're just staying focused on the actual purpose. So for me, the business plan, a strategic plan always starts with why. So this is also your definition of, yes, your definition of success. So tactical is so much easier to solve once you have the why, because it's very clear then. If you're about custom framing, if somebody comes in and says, I think you should be teaching people how to build lawnmowers, you're going to say, no, that doesn't make sense. That's not coherent with who we are. So we're not going to create tactics for that because it doesn't make sense. So now that we know the why, let's talk about what is actually required. So that to me is what a business plan or a strategic plan, what it actually solves. The guiding question in all of the plans that I do is what is required for success? And if your mission says what your success definition is, then you'll be able to go through that specifically and say, we need this, we need that, this is required. So there are a couple of requirements that everybody needs for any kind of business. And that's like, what is the thing that you sell or that you do or that you create or how you serve? You need a story around that thing, whatever it is. And the thing, just so we're clear, that why, the thing is the actual like physical manifestation of the why. So if you have a mission and then you have programs, the program should be a direct manifestation of what the why is. For instance, if you're New World Symphony and you're creating musicians of the future, musician leaders of the future, then your programs are the manifestation of your mission. That's the fellowship through which your musicians are learning and through which they are continuing their training in order to serve as leaders in the field of music, etc. So your thing that you do is a manifestation of your mission. You also need to tell the story about that. So it's great if you have the thing, the widget, the product. If you're not telling people about it, it stays with you. It's very limited in its ability to make bigger impact. The third thing is family. Everybody needs a family. Everybody has a family. Some of us choose our family, some of us don't. The same is true in any kind of business. You have certain people you have to work with, and you have other people who just are naturally attracted to what you do. And then we have other things like, board members, staff members, volunteers. If you do education programs, the beneficiaries of those programs, whatever it is, the family of individuals and the networks that come together around what you do, that is your family. Okay, so just to recap, we have the why, we have the what. The what is the manifestation of the why. It's the thing, the widget, the product, the program, whatever it is, it's the manifestation of your mission. You tell the story about that. Telling the story about that reaches your family. So those are the people who care about what you do, who you're impacting. And when you have a nice, healthy, growing group of people who love what you do, you are able to then create resources. So that can be capital, that can be people, that can be venue, that can be all sorts of other things. And you have those resources so then you can put them back into the thing that you're here doing most of the time, which is the product, the service, the program. There are also organization-specific things, but what we're looking at is what is required for success. So what I just went over, the thing, the story, the family, and then the resources, those are what every business needs, regardless of type of business. If you are an artist, you still need the thing, the story, the family, and the money, or the venue. That could be your studio, whatever it is. Then everyone will also have some specific things that are unique to them. If you have proprietary software that allows you to do the thing you do, there are other factors involved. So that is the essential framework of a business plan, which allows you to, again, look at each of those areas, what's working, what's not working, and how can we be doing better business. So all of this reinforces and should be tied back to the why. If you're doing something on resources that isn't related to the why, I see this a lot with nonprofit clients. Oh, here's a grant opportunity. Let's go for it. But if the grant is for making lawnmowers and you make shopping carts, it doesn't make sense to go for a grant that will stress out your staff, completely fracture the operations that you're going for. Just chasing money and creating a what around money doesn't make sense in most cases because it's not aligned. And if you're really having a mission, a why that is strong, you'll be able to kind of factor that out. So what is required for success for you? This is the time, if you're watching on YouTube, you pause the video and you make your list. Think about it. What is required for you to be successful? The thing that you do. So I'm a consultant. I need to have people doing things that they need to solve, like business plans. So I need to have a story that I'm telling about it. So that's part of what I'm doing right now. I need a family of people, clients, peers, people who I'm interested in learning from, people who I'm creating content for or sharing with. So your family is not just people you take from. Your family is like a whole network of people you're investing in. You need resources. So obviously, I hire other people too. I need to pay them. I have basic operating costs, just like everybody. And then there are other specific things that my business needs that maybe other businesses wouldn't need, but everyone needs those basic categories. So what is required for success for you? And you can just start, if you're going to do a DIY plan, these are the areas to start with. So the thing, the story, the family, and then the resources. What is required for success is the guiding question I use for these plans. And it's not what might be nice, or what have we done in the past that one time that worked that one time, or we do these things because that's the way we have always done them. This is not any of those things. This is what is required, which means you get to take a hard look at all the things you're doing and audit them. Is this aligned with the why? If it is not, and we need it, maybe the why needs to change. If we don't need it, maybe if this is the time to get it to sunset. So hope that makes sense. So again, you want to look at the what and make sure it aligns with the why. And this is my process for business planning. There are tons and tons of different ways to do it. I'm also have read the Lean Startup. There are tons of ways to do this. That is basically like do a small thing and try it out and get data, speak to your audience. Like that's great. And that works. And so none of these things are exclusive of one another. So you can take what works for you. This is a framework that I've learned and that I find to be really helpful because it does make you look at things that maybe you're not, especially if you're a creative person, maybe you're not looking at, am I good at, the resources side of things, or am I good at the family side of things? Because usually we are looking at making the thing that is fun that we love to do. And so, but if you're going to really be deliberate and be successful, a plan helps you look at those areas and decide how to solve them. So if we're looking at what is required for success as the guiding question, then basically a strategic plan, a business plan, just takes those requirements and turns them into an action plan. And that is basically the thing that needs to be solved, when, and who. And then you add the financial impact. So if you're looking to rate, you know that to be successful, you need to raise your individual fundraising by 10%. You're going to be spending more in individual fundraising, and also you're going to want your budget to reflect that you're going to go up 10% in that area. So the whole idea, what is required for success? Strategic and business plan just says, do we have it or don't we? If we don't, how do we get it? Oh, here's how, and by when, and who's responsible. And if we do have it, how do we leverage it? How do we make more of it? How do we shine? How do we amplify that? So again, the whole thing about business plan, it's an exercise in self-awareness. It forces you to go through the different business areas and to know what to solve. And when you're a sole proprietor, like I am, it's really easy to get stuck on one thing or to feel very overwhelmed. This is why it's a good idea to have a date with yourself, at least an hour a month, to go through each of the business areas and just say, like, how am I doing on the thing that I'm doing? How am I doing on family? How am I doing on storytelling? Because you're not going to be able to tackle all of these things all at once. If you have a great team, then you will, but it's also good to keep going, to zoom out and really look at these areas at least once a month. If your strategic plan, once you're done, sits on a shelf, it is not worth the time. So if you're going to invest in this process, really make it relevant and really look at it all the time. Have it guide decisions, because that's the best possible outcome, is when the energy you're investing in this framework actually starts to yield results. It's because you have it top of mind and you're actually working the plan. If it sits on a shelf, not worth it. Don't invest in it. But this is about self-awareness, and to get better, we need to be looking at where we're not so good and how we're solving that. Okay, so we start with why. And by the way, once your strategic plan is done, it's not done, because when you implement it, you're going to realize, like, life has happened and we're in this thing called COVID, and my summer programs may be impacted. So implementation may be a messy process, but the idea is not to give you a flat thing. The idea is to give you a framework that you can recalibrate. And if you're looking at it all the time, you're going to be better aligned to making those recalibrations as they come up, and not waiting and saying, oh, well, half of my plan is completely irrelevant now. Then you're really stuck. So going back to the thing. So when we look at the product, the service, or the program, this is the manifestation of the why, as I said before. You want to look at, is this planned well enough in advance for me to be successful? If you're planning an event next week, it's too late. You're not going to be able to attract the number of people that you want to. Is it high quality? If it's not high quality, it's going to be hard for you to establish a good reputation, because sooner or later, somebody will find out. They're going to call you out, or they're going to tell everybody they know in a quiet way that you're not the thing or the person or the offering or the widget that they thought that you were. So it's got to be high quality. Otherwise, you can't scale, you can't grow. And frankly, if people are upset and disappointed, it's really hard to grow your family. Also, I see a lot of creative folks who are so into the doing and the creating the thing that they customize everything for everybody. And if you're a visual artist and you have patrons who are commissioning work from you, maybe you have more flexibility to do that. But if you're a nonprofit organization and you're looking to grow, you can't build like the equivalent of a custom Mercedes for every program that you do. It's just not going to be coherent with your ability to deliver. So you need to do some sort of idea of how you create a product that is a set kind of thing. Again, if you are ready to scale, if you're ready to grow, if you're just testing out, that's something different. So we've talked about the what, the thing that you do must serve the why. You don't want to start drifting on your mission. Again, little side steps if you're not clear on how that thing serves the greater purpose. It's very easy to see that then you're either chasing money or you're burning people out because what you're doing is not really relevant to the big picture. Part two, the story. It's required to be successful in the long term. And this is where I see so many clients actually forgetting and thinking people already know. Well, here's the thing. People don't already know what you do. If you're making assumptions, you are wrong. There's so much information now. People are not really seeing that they're not top of mind. This is why you've noticed those businesses that send you an email every day. You're like, really? But think about it. Are these the businesses that you are remembering what they're doing? You feel connected to them. You feel kind of in the loop with what's going on. That's by design. They're telling the story to you on purpose repeatedly because they know you're busy and they know that you have other things to do. But to stay top of mind, you have to do this. People are not psychic. So for instance, if you're a musician and you're looking for gigs, if you're in your practice room all day long and you're not telling people about your work and what you're excited about and showing what it sounds like when you play, then you're not telling your story and you're just not going to be found. And right now, if you're not findable, you're not really that relevant because people are not going to be seeking you out for that brilliant thing that only you do. So the reason that you tell your story is that in order for somebody to sign on and become part of your family, they have to, number one, know you. Number two, they have to like you. And number three, they have to trust you. This is something that I heard from another entrepreneur, and I just thought it was so brilliant. I'm sharing it with you because I think it's totally true. If you're not known, you're not on the radar. Nobody is joining your family if they don't know you. And you have to be liked. So part of telling the story is sharing who you are and kind of what's weird about you, what's unique, what's different. And then over time, you become trusted because people start to share things and they start to see and they comment and they engage. This is you building your tribe, building your family, and it starts with trust. And if you're not willing to be out there telling your story, then you're not going to be trusted. So when people want to hire me, the first thing they do is they Google me, right? Who is this person? What's her track record? What does she stand for? What does her work look like? Is she credible? So all of these things are for all of us. If you're telling your story, also you have more license and more ability to show what you care about and what you stand for. If you're not telling your story, you are really relying on other people to tell your story, which is just a choice. You can choose to make that choice or not. So you have to look at your audience and customers when you are thinking about your story. So story is important. We've talked about the importance of it, but why? Because your story is the who, your story is for the who. Here, you're looking at your customers, you're looking at your audience members, you're looking at your clients, you're looking at the people who you want to tell the story to because they want the thing that you do. They want to join your family. They may just not know it yet. They're not going to get there from, oh, this thing is great, to like, oh, I like your values, and oh, I understand you and I trust you, in order to kind of sign on. Okay. So you have to think about the who. There's cause and effect in storytelling. If you tell a story, what is the action you want to happen? And why is it important for them to care about you? So not everything needs a call to action, but when you tell a story, the idea is it is a purposeful thing. It helps you underline what you stand for, that big why. It also helps people know that they're for you. They're like, oh, I totally get it. I'm in. My sister actually told me there's this new kind of like moisturizer she's using, and she loves it because it smells like coffee and it instantly goes into her pores. It's made of honey and she just adores it. And so I happened to be thinking about getting a new moisturizer, and she told me it was awesome. So I gave it a try, and I don't think it smells like coffee, but I certainly like how I like how it feels on my skin. So she told the story based on what her own experience was. This is what your customers are doing all the time. And the more that you are telling them what you do, because they may not intuit it's the full depth of all the things it is, the better for you. So often we downplay and we think people know what we do. The people who send you emails every day, they're not assuming you remember or know. And just remember that as an example. So the business plan helps you solve this part. And honestly, I rarely work on a business plan where there is not a lot more strategy and intentionality around the story, because the story drives the growth of your family. So there's a lot of that we do in our business plans. So at some point, I'm going to talk about the who, and probably do one of these just about the who, your ideal customer. But you have to know who you're communicating with in order to get to what you want to say to them and where you want to say it. If you want people to purchase your services and you're not in a findable place, or you're not where your people are, they're just not going to find you. So it doesn't make a lot of sense on the business side of things. So if you don't tell your story, you definitely won't be known, liked, and trusted. You cannot set and forget. You cannot make assumptions that people know what you do. It's like if you're in a place that has lots of artist studios, and you just assume that the studio, people will come to the studios and they'll find you, that's fine. But nobody's going to wake up and say, oh, I could buy art today, and I could go to this specific place and find this specific art form by this specific person, and I just know I'm going to be wanting to purchase that. There's something behind it that you have to make it easier for them to find you. And that's all that the story is. The story allows you to get visible to people because you're thinking about them. And you will not be not rewarded by thinking about what is important to you and what motivates your people. So persistence wins. Knowing who you're talking to and where they hang out, also super important. So what else? Frequency and the content itself is very important. So also be thinking about, if people respond to videos, don't write to them in text. So just know your people. So if you have a great program or product, you tell a good story, you're going to have people who are attracted to it. You're going to have people who show up, people who engage, and that family will grow. If you're not telling the stories and continuing to engage with them, the growth will be smaller. But growth of your family and engagement, like getting people interested, getting them to stay active with you, that is sustainability. So most organizations, most companies are not focused on this enough, and the storytelling that helps them grow that. So we see a lot that's too small, too not engaged, and not growing. These families are kind of like stuck and they're not paying attention to it. They're just focused on the thing or whatever. So board staff, volunteers, partners, networks of people, funders, anybody who is required for the success of your business is part of your family. So it's also good to go, as you're going through the who of your audience, like who's the who of the people that you also want to make bigger or engage more with, or who can actually help you expand your business. It's not always going to be directly through you. This is what B2B is, like who are our partners through whom we can collaborate or partner or do bigger business. So once you have the great thing that is aligned with your purpose, you're telling people about it, they're super engaged, they're bringing their friends, they're spreading the word, they're having a great experience, then you can start to grow your resources. You can start, when your family is growing, they're going to have things that they can bring to the picture, that they can bring to the party, that you can't alone. So the last part of a business plan, for me and the way that I do it, is to focus on resources. And this is capital. This is financial capital. This is human capital, talent, and networks. And it's also inspiration capital. So sometimes people have access to ideas that we don't have access to. If you have a board of directors, this is your brain trust. So they are helping you get access to things that you can't access by yourself. And what is the resource? What is the point of having resources and capital, is so that we can do more of the things that are below our why, more of the widgets, more of the products, more of the services. So everyone needs capital, and everyone needs multiple kinds of capital, not just financial capital. So we need the capital to do the what. And let's talk about also, just quickly here, how does capital look in terms of resources if you are an organization that is nonprofit, or you are a certain kind of artist? You might have contributors, you might have donors, you might have patrons who commission work. You might have investors. If you're a small business, you might have investors. You might have a crowd. There are a bunch of people doing crowdfunding. And then you have your board of directors. So a lot of organizations ask their boards to contribute or require it. And that is a source of contributed revenue. There's also earned revenue, which is like events, programs, products, services, and then sometimes we have new platforms that allow us to earn new things. Some of my clients right now have gone digital and they're offering their services in a way that's more accessible. And sometimes they're charging a fee and sometimes they're charging no fee. So it just depends, but they're exploring new platforms that they hadn't before. There's also passive income. We love that. That's another conversation. And then there's the rainy day. So you want to be thinking about part of success on purpose is how can I ensure that we have capital going forward for crises like this? That might look like an endowment, a cash reserve, or savings, right? If you're an individual. Another part of resources, and this is the final thing I'm going to talk about today, is you have resources through the networks, the access that your family has and brings to the table that you might not have directly. And these are things like also venues. Sometimes you have a resource that is your venue. There's a local opera company that had a building donated to them, and that was a huge, huge donation, and it affected them financially in a very good way. And that also became part of their balance sheet, part of their net assets that they were then able to monetize. So there are all sorts of ways that these look, but just to recap, business plan helps you be successful on purpose. It helps you look at the different areas of your business that are required and solve where you're weak, leverage where you're strong. But it's a self-awareness tool, and it's something that can help you stay on track, whether you're an individual or you're a small business or you're a nonprofit organization. There are elements of the business plan that help you do your business better and that help you keep growing and be sustainable. So it's a great tool. If you have any questions, you can email me, info@culturedinnovations.com. You can always DM me, Instagram and Facebook. You can leave a comment or subscribe on YouTube. Join my email list, culturedinnovations.com. And it's really great to be with you here today, again, to talk about business plans. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope this was helpful. So hit me up, and otherwise, I'm so thrilled that you spent some time with me this afternoon. Okay, that's it. We'll see you again tomorrow. And Catherine Mikesell is going to be joining us from the Fountainhead Residency. Super excited about that. So I will see you tomorrow.